Hello, today we are going to be going over copyright. So what is copyright? It is the legal rights to an original work. These laws set the conditions under which anyone may copy in whole or in part original works transmittable in any medium. Without copyright laws, writers, artists, and media producers would not receive the compensation they deserve for their creations. So it's a legal form of protection offered to the creators by default, and I'll explain what that means later. Pretty much you don't have to register your work to have it protected by copyright. And also, if anybody who uses your work or uses a work that's protected by copyright without permission, that is called copyright infringement, and then I will go over that later on as well. So what are the rights of the copyright owners? So they have these 5 rights. They can reproduce their work, they can prepare derivatives, and what that means is that they can create new works that are related to the original. They can translate, if they wrote a book, they can translate it from English to Spanish or vice versa. Or they can even make a book into a movie. They can perform and display and distribute the work however they like. They can sell it by distributing, that means selling it, or they can transfer ownership, or they can rent it, that sort of deal. They can perform and display publicly, again, just however they like. They're the ones that have complete control over the work. So why is it necessary? It's important and necessary because it protects the value of the creator's work, and it also promotes creativity and protects the rights of the creator and also the users of the information. So you as a person wanting to use a copyrighted work, within permission, it gives you some protection as well. So who is a creator? All of us are creators. The minute that we put pen to paper, the minute that we type something out, write a story, write a poem, paint something, take a picture, record something, that is when copyright begins. So that's what I meant by created by default. So what can be copyrighted? Anything that's original and it is fixed in a tangible medium of expression. Like I said, putting pen to paper. If it's on a disc or tape or recorded on film, that is when something is copyrighted. So what does it protect? What sort of things? So it protects fiction and nonfiction writings, poetry, musical compositions, that includes the words and the music, photographs, paintings, drawings, sculptures, architecture works, pretty much any performance, any choreography, that is protected under copyright. So long as it is original and the form of expression is out there. What is not protected by copyright? That includes ideas and concepts. So just, an idea that you're fiddling around in your mind, that isn't protected. Any facts, titles, short phrases and slogans, works created by the government, and then works in the public domain, that is not protected by copyright. And I'll explain what public domain is in a bit. So what happens if copyright infringement occurs? Pretty much you face civil and criminal sanctions. So what that means is there are consequences. So you could have fines that range from $750 to $30,000 per infringement. If it's proven that the law was broken by willful intent, meaning you did it on purpose, you meant to do it, the fine can be raised to $150,000. And if you try to make money off of it, it goes up again to $250,000, and it's up to 5 years in prison. So that's your criminal and your civil sanctions. If it happens while you're in school, it can affect your grades, and it can also affect your academic status. So pretty much copyright infringement can be serious and it can be expensive. So make sure that we are not doing that. Again, how does a work become copyrighted? It begins when a work is created in a fixed and tangible medium of expression. So that means that you can see it, I mean, you can touch it. It's capable of being perceived by the senses, that you know it exists. It's an actual thing. That is when copyright protection begins. So can you avoid infringement if you give credit to the source? Copyright infringement and plagiarism are two different things. Plagiarism is passing it off as your own work without giving credit to the source. So even if you properly cite it, you're still going to be liable. You're still going to be at fault for infringement, and you're going to be responsible for that. So do copyrights expire? If it's an old work, is it still covered by a copyright? It's best to always assume that a work is copyrighted. Just because the word copyright and the little symbol, the C with the circle around it, isn't there doesn't mean that it's not protected. Again, as soon as the work is in a tangible form, it's protected by copyright. So if it's an older work, then that's when we're going to move into the public domain. And what that means is that the copyright lasts for the life of the author plus 70 years. So an example of that would be the novel The Great Gatsby. It was published in 1922, and F. Scott Fitzgerald, the author, passed away in the 1940s, I believe. So it's been 70 years. So now if a teacher wants to use The Great Gatsby in the classroom, they want to teach it, or if they don't have enough copies, then they have permission to make copies of it because it's now in the public domain. So what is the public domain? That is where works where the copyright has expired, or works that were intentionally placed there by the creators. That's the public domain. So that means that not one person owns the copyright. That means the public owns it, and permission to use it isn't necessary. So examples of that include ideas, charts, calendars, and factual information. So again, if it's in the public domain, the public owns it, and you do not need permission to use it. There's another thing called Creative Commons, and that is a place where creators can make their work available to other people, and they don't need to ask for permission to use it. But there is a license that describes the terms of using it, modifying, and sharing the work. So the creator decides what's going to be allowed. Either, somebody can freely use it. They have some limits to it. Or they can share it, or they can, put their twist to it, put their own twist to it. That's the Creative Commons. So how do you get permission to reproduce a copyrighted work? So first of all, you're going to find the copyright owner, or in the case if it's a well-known, famous author, you can contact the distributor or the publisher and ask for permission. You don't have to fill out a form. It can be an oral or written request, but putting it in writing is the best thing to do. And include in your request your contact information. If it's a book, the number of pages, the page number, and the amount that you're going to or that you wish to copy, and then the number of copies, and then also what is your intention to use it for. And of course, plan ahead. Don't just assume, because I send an email, I'm going to get a response in like an hour or two. So make sure that you're giving yourself time to use this information, or to get permission to use this information. And then there's also fair use. This is kind of the gray area of copyright. So it provides exemptions for teachers and students. Small portions of the works can be used in teaching when properly cited and noted, and that if noted that the materials are copyrighted and by whom. But there are some criteria that must be met in order to use it, in order for it to fall under fair use. And so you need to consider all four of these have to be met. The purpose and the character of the use, if it's nonprofit or educational. The nature of the copyright work, if it's factual, creative. The amount that's going to be copied in relation to the whole. and then the effect that it's going to have on the market value of the work. So is it going to infringe on the copyright owner on making their due compensation? So all four of those have to be met. So you have to be using it in good faith. So meaning that you're not going to use it and try to make money off of it and that sort of deal. Are there limits to fair use for school projects? So like I said earlier, it's a gray area, and this is kind of like the general guideline for it. So you can use up to 5 images by the same person, a max of 15 images or 10% of a total collection, a max of 30 seconds or 10% of an audio, and a max of 3 minutes of a video or 10% of it. Again, whichever is less. That's going to be the case for all of those, just whichever is less. That's the best thing to keep in mind, is to remember that the less of a work that you use, the better it will be. And for school projects, fair use expires after 2 years after the project is completed, and it only applies to the audience within your school. So you can't present this information outside of school. So remember, if you didn't create the work or you don't own the copyright to it, you must get permission to use it. So copyright laws protect not only the owner, it protects the person using it. So if you're following the rules, then you're good. And remember, anybody is a copyright owner. The minute that you create something tangible that we can see and we can feel and we can see the recording of it, then that is protected by copyright. So if you have any questions, feel free to ask them, and thank you for your time.